Hello, hello. Hello, hello. This is Ignacy Portal Games.
And I'm Corey Thompson with Dice Tower Now and Dice Tower Dish.
And I am Stephen Bonacore, the Podfather of Gaming. You are listening to Board Games Insider, episode 266, and we're recording it on February 22, 2023. Board Games Insider is a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. But Tom Vassell, you're not going to believe this, called me just 2 days ago on the telephone, like so old school, just to see how I was doing because, quote, I have not heard from you in months. I'm still trying to figure out what his ulterior motive was. I think he wants money. I don't know.
Money?
It probably. I told him he had to call you because you were sad.
I was sad that I had not heard from him. That's got to be it.
People can call you for money? What's your telephone number?
Well, I didn't give him any, and I'm not going to, but you know.
I'm just asking for myself. Like,
maybe I'll give you money. Maybe. Ignacy, silliness aside, what is going on over Portal Games?
we have a very strong opening of the year because all the delayed stuff from the last year is finally coming home. So first of all, as we speak today, exactly today, February 22nd, the street date for 11, you and our listeners remember there was a game planned to be released during the World Cup. Nobody remembers even the World Cup now, but finally we are releasing the game. So congratulations to my production management and all the people involved. Finally, the game is at your local game store. So please, 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 dear listeners, dear fans, go to the local game store and demand. Here's a box. If you watch on YouTube, the Podfather of Gaming, here's 11 box. Perfect game for managing the business. If you like managing the business, hiring the staff, building infrastructure, and winning some matches, is a game for you. So, as I said, unfortunately, 3 months of delay, but finally in stores.
It's like Ted Lasso, the board game, right? You're going to be managing the team. And even though you don't know a lot about soccer or football, you're going to be a team manager. It's an amazing game.
I'm not allowed to say Ted Lasso the board game, so I appreciate
can.
that you said it. Yes,
I can say anything I want.
nice hack for the system. But yeah, this is like a managing the club, not actually playing the football, but managing the club. And this past Friday, we opened and started pre-orders for 51st State, and this is a similar case. So backers are getting their copies right now. We are just shipping every single day. We are shipping copies. Backers are very happy, praising the game, showing on Board Game Geek that they received the copy. So because backers are getting the copies, we can start pre-orders and slowly prepare for the retail edition of the game. So if you missed GameFound campaign for 51st State, first of all, why? You're a listener. You listen every week. I was talking about this campaign for a long time. But if you missed that, now you have a time to pre-order the game. My production team prepared for you a couple of promos. So grab it from our website, portalgamesus.com. You will get the game and the promos, and you will get it before the street date. So as always, a great offer from us. So one game in the stores, one game on the pre-order. Good beginning of the year for us. For other updates like development, I was playtesting today Forgal, the next scenario for the game. So it will be our GameFound campaign, the next GameFound campaign. Yesterday, believe it or not, I was playtesting a new case for the Batman, so I'm on fire playtesting the stuff. And our listeners, our loyal listeners know it very well. If the games will be released the fall season, that means that they go to the print now. So we are finishing playtesting and then finishing sending it to the print. So this is very, very busy time for our development and for our DTP. So lots of things are happening.
And I got a notice. I got a notice from Portal Games that something is shipping. I don't even know what it is, but something was coming. I got an email.
State?
I don't know.
Did you back it?
I did.
I appreciate you.
Something is shipping to me.
So that's most likely the 51st State. I'm very proud. I wrote a short article on my website, ignacy.com. Guys, on a serious note, this game was released in 2010. It's like freaking 13 years ago. And it's still selling. It still has the fans. It still has a new edition. So I'm super proud. and it was my brag moment of the podcast.
I
And
have
that's it.
I have yet to play, actually, even the older version. But Z Garcia loves the game, and we keep saying to each other that he's going to teach me this game. So maybe Dice Tower West, which we'll talk about in a little bit, maybe Z and I will get a chance to play.
Are you
Maybe.
coming to Alan Moore's Gathering of Friends?
Oh, of course I will.
I'll be there too.
Are you going? Finally? Wow.
COVID is gone. I can
Oh.
travel, and I'm coming back. I'm bringing Mary, so I'm bringing fun with me.
I have my first shot to get you down to my house. My first shot. I'll work on Mary.
Yeah, exactly the case.
Corey, what's going on in your world?
Oh man, I'm all excited about 51st State. I'm waiting for my copy, waiting for my shipping notice, but
I appreciate that.
I love that game. I've loved it since the beginning.
Thank
But this week it's been a little quiet business-wise. I've played a couple new games. The really weird one I played that I got a real kick out of was Portents. And Portents is a little abstract tile game from Christopher Ryan Chan that I got through Kickstarter. There's a small little board with colored tiles that have different colors and different symbols. And you push a number of them off the edge of this 3x3 grid, put new ones on, and try to make rows of identical tiles. There's also a reserve system where you flip over tiles so they're unusable for other players. You're looking to make a row of 3 so that you can claim a 4th that's sitting outside the board. Was really thinking, made my brain hurt, but thought it was a really interesting one. So that's the one that's on my mind, is Portents from
I want to warn our listeners. If the game makes Corey explode his brain, guys, you don't even start. Like, just say, like, it's not for you.
You're too nice.
That's
Just
great. Anything else, sir?
That was the big one for me. I got to play First Rad again. That's a fun one.
I love First Rad.
Nice. Yeah, we played it on the cruise, on the Bana cruise, which I think it was missed opportunity not calling it the Bana cruise. That really shows a lack of ingenuity, a lack of getting there.
I'm not a creative. I've obviously said that. And speaking of being creative, in my news of the week, the game designing on my part does still continue, and I'm still reaching out to people who would like to play test my design, as long as you'll sign an NDA at Dice Tower West in 2 weeks. Corey actually has played already, and he's waving his hand if you'll watch the podcast. So he'll be able to play the new incarnation of the game at Dice Tower West. But if anybody else is listening and they want to reach out, we'll schedule a time. I'm sure I'll play it once a day while I'm there, give or take, between going to the bar and doing other things that are bad for me in Las Vegas.
The best playthroughs, by the way, are right after he's been to the bar. That's really when you want to schedule your playthrough.
That's the best times, of course. Just finished a quick trip to St. Augustine, Florida. Now, that's Florida, big state, 4 hours north, way north of even Orlando. And if anybody out there hasn't been to St. Augustine, Florida, I'd highly recommend it. It's the oldest continuously settled town that is now part of the United States, but by the Westerners, of course. It turned over hands like 5 times between Spain and France and England and back to Spain and England. So we just kept this big thing going on. Pirates and privateer raids, the oldest Catholic church in North America, the oldest jail. Great history. We went on a pub ghost tour, which I thought was kind of funny. It took us to haunted pubs. And of course, you had a drink every time you stopped at a pub. It was a great time. So I'd highly recommend, if you're in Florida and you've got some extra time, go check out St. Augustine, and it's right on the beach. It's a very, very cool area. As I mentioned, see everybody in 2 weeks at Dice Tower West. Very much looking forward to that. And with that, let's get over to the event deck. Now, Ignacy, we purposely didn't talk about this last week because it is something too important not to talk about with Ignacy Chevicek on the podcast. So GAMA elects a new board member.
I was told this is going to be good. I was told that you got to be there when Ignacy talks about it.
And this is to fill Frank West's vacated publisher director seat. And as you recall, possibly listeners and watchers, Frank West was the president of the board. Of course, you hold a seat and then you're appointed, or they're voted on to see who's going to be the president. Frank was the president. And after 2 months, he resigned, which was very sad because I thought Frank was an amazing guy. Corey and I hung out with him in Essen this past year. So to read this very quickly, the Game Manufacturers Association announced that they have elected a new board member to fill Frank West's vacated publisher seat. Frank West left the board in November 2022 and stepped down as the president of the GAMA board after serving only 3 months in that position. The seat will be filled by, and this was very interesting, Jason Matthews of Fort Circle Games. But that's not Jason's true claim to fame in the hobby, of course. He's one of the biggest designers, really, in the industry, or has been in the past quite a bit. He is the designer of Twilight Struggle and many, many, many other really great games. So it's interesting that Jason, who hooked up and is with Fort Circle now as a principal at that company, has also stepped up to take over the publishing seat that Frank West had vacated. Ignacy, I know you're very excited about this, so you want to talk about this at all?
No, I finally figured it out, and I know when the whole thread of Gamma elections will finish, and it is all our fault. This is like a worldwide escape room. We need to figure out the rules, what's happening, and when we figure out why they are changing, what's the purpose, what's the rule, who will be the next, if we solve the puzzle, if we solve why is the next election, we will provide this information. They will say, yes, you solved the puzzle, it was just a game for you gamers and publishers, we are finally elected, and this end. So I think this is a game, and so we need to analyze who was fired, who was elected, who put a place on this person, and we need to figure out what's going on for the past 2 years, and we will solve the puzzle.
So you have one of those cork boards behind you that has pictures of every person in Gamma and all the look, and there's red string connecting all of the pictures. I just want to make sure. I always suspected.
We will solve the puzzle, and we'll know who will be elected the next, and then we win the game, and it's over.
It's a mystery. It's more of a mystery than Batman Detective. The whole thing is a mystery. All right, this is a very interesting news article that came directly from Spielworks to us. And Uli Blenneman is a longtime listener, great publisher, great person. And I really wanted to call it out because I'm sure it's not going to get a lot of press, but Spielworks has announced the Ryan Courtney collection. Publisher Spielworks partners with designer Ryan Courtney to launch the Ryan Courtney collection, just announced about a week ago. Today, Spielworks announces a partnership with Ryan Courtney to launch the new Epitomus line. I love that. That's a great English word that nobody uses. The Ryan Courtney collection under their publishing house, slated for a yearly release schedule. This numbered series of games will allow Ryan to loosen the reins and push the boundaries of his designs while building on Spielworks' impressive 13-year history catering to the indie game audience. The first game will appear in 2024, so it'll start next year.
That's awesome.
I was really, I'm a big proponent of featuring designers as the heroes, in games. And, I had the Great Designer series at Stronghold. So I really love this. And I like the fact that obviously Uli saw something really great about a series of games that Ryan had probably sort of in his back pocket, saying, I got this one. And then after that, we can do this one. Maybe they're linked. Maybe they're not. We haven't gotten a lot of info, but I thought this was a great little bit of marketing to create this new line for Spielworks and Ryan.
It's fantastic. I just want to throw out there, Ryan is the designer behind Trailblazers, Pipeline, Curious Cargo, Bear Raid. So it's a fantastic series of games. Great guy.
Yeah, Spielworks is one of the most renowned small publishers, independent, who does all these projects that are very ambitious, very thinky, very difficult, most of the publishers are scared to publish these games, and he has his audience. He knows how to do it. He does his Kickstarters, and so if you are a designer and have a very, very thinky, difficult game, maybe it's your chance to go to Uli and Spielworks. So yeah,
Very,
we need such companies in the market.
Yeah, he's a very interesting model where he does like 1,000 games. That's it. One and done, doesn't reprint. Sometimes it gets sold to another publisher in the end, but I love his model, and great human being. Love him.
Yeah.
Wizards of the Coast. Yep. Wizards of the Coast tabletop sales are up 40% for Q4, 12% for the year. Now we've been talking about Wizards quite a bit with bad news after bad news after bad news after bad news with the OGL, basically. So this is an interesting one, saying that, well, even with all that, sales will way up, but the impact of their OGL fiasco, let's just call it, will probably not be felt until at least this coming quarter. So WotC reported tabletop game sales up 40% for Q1 and 12% for the full year in their quarterly report. Remember, publicly traded company, so this stuff all gets put out, in big announcements for Wall Street. Hasbro CEO Chris Cox also addressed recent events, acknowledging that WotC misfired in his handling of the proposed open gaming license revisions. So good news on the front for them, continuing to push forward with their segment of hobby gaming, which is obviously role-playing collectible cards, a very specific one, and they are so much bigger than anybody else in that sector.
I just wanted to throw out there just for you, Stephen, that WotC today, this morning, detailed their release of the Magic the Gathering Lord of the Rings sets.
No, they did not.
They are coming out in June, pre-release June 16th. Full set releases on June 23rd.
Oh my God.
Wish listed?
I haven't played Magic the Gathering in a really long time.
Well, they have a history of this little niche of Magic called Universes Beyond that are themed and weird. There was all sorts of different themes on there, and the newest one is Lord of the Rings.
I can't wait to see it. I don't know that I'm certainly not going to get back into CCGs, but I certainly, if they're going to have any.
You know that Lord of the Rings is this fantasy trilogy of books by a Tolkien guy. You might have heard of them.
You don't know anything, Corey. We've established that you know nothing.
I know J.R.R. Tolkien, right?
That
J.R.R. John Ronald Rule.
That's right.
Heard it.
You guys are nonsense. So the next one here was put here by one of you two. I don't know who. I think it was Corey, right? And there's no link here, so I'm going to let you take it over. Whoever put this next one there.
It was me. It's my fault.
Your fault.
I thought it was really interesting. Restoration Games, one of their biggest titles, as you know, is Unmatched, which is a team skirmish game where you have a set of cards and a miniature, and you fight some bizarre character versus some other bizarre character. Super popular. They just announced that they're doing a vault kind of thing where they are taking certain expansion sets that have been going for Unmatched, and they're putting them in the vault, which basically means they're not going to be reprinting them, but they're announcing they're in limited supply. And the two sets that they announced that are going in the vault now are Robin Hood and Bigfoot, which was one of the initial releases for Unmatched, but also Cobble and Fog, which is a recent release and one of their most popular releases. So Cobble and Fog, Robin Hood and Bigfoot, two Unmatched expansion sets, standalone expansion sets, are going in the vault from Restoration Games.
So you're saying that these things have been out, but there's X amount of supply, and after that, they're not going to be reprinting them?
They're not going to be reprinted. And Restoration announced it this week that every year, they're going to be putting one or two. They're going to announce that there's no reprints. They're going in the vault. They're going to be gone.
Yeah, it's very interesting because this is super interesting because I had a different model, but I suppose it may be the similar reasoning with expansions for Neuroshima Hex, which has at this point like 20 expansions, and no game store on this planet store all of them because it's too much SKU. Yes, SKU. You said it. Yeah, SKUs.
Yeah.
And so what we did as a Portal Games, we are putting in the vault all the armies, all the expansions, and we sell them only through our website. But we don't bother stores anymore because we know that they are not interested to, restocking expansion from 5 years ago, etc., etc. So we somehow did the same model in terms of the distribution, but we still have them in a small print runs to get from our website. As I read these restoration said, we just kill it and no website, anything. But it may be the same case when there's too many expansions, stores no longer care for that, and they are tired of that.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a guess at this, and again, no knowledge other than these words that you put right here. That expansions. We all know this. Expansions sell less than the base game, and every time you print another expansion, it sells less than the one before, less than the one before. That's just the pattern. If you sell 50% of for an expansion of the base game when it came out, that's huge. So normally it's correct. 33, 25. So it really gets lower and lower anyway. I have a feeling that they have these older expansions that there's basically saying to everybody, we're not reprinting them. Ergo, just, now you buy them. And when they're out, they're out. So they're not selling now. They may have been big in the past, but they're not selling. So they're doing that. Very, very interesting. Asmodee, fourth quarter sales down 5%. Now, the Embracer Group, the parent company of Asmodee, reported that they had sales of almost $400 million, which were converted from Swedish kroner, in its fiscal fourth quarter by tabletop game distribution and publishing subsidiary Asmodee. Okay, so I'm sorry that I didn't read that well. Embracer has reported specifically that Asmodee sales were down 5% quarter over quarter from 2021 to 2022. Embracer listed key Asmodee new releases in the quarter as Star Wars Clone Wars, which I actually played this past weekend. I forgot to mention that when I was in St. Augustine. Splendor Duel, Challengers, Twilight Inscription, of course I've played, 3,000 Scoundrels, and Heat, Pedal to the Metal. The drop in Asmodee sales comes at a time of the board game market contraction in the U.S., Embracer said in its quarterly report. It estimates the board game market in the U.S. as down 7% for the 9-month period, April through December 2022. That's just their estimate of what they believe the overall market was, and Asmodee was down 5% in the midst of that. It estimates the overall tabletop game market up 1% for the 9-month period in the last 9 months of 2022, buoyed by an estimated 21% increase in what it called strategic trading cards. Don't know what they're defining that as, but that's interesting. So comments on this, guys. They're saying, first of all, U.S. market is now in a retraction, down what they're saying is 7% year over year. And Asmodee, specifically the biggest of the big, down 5% in that last quarter.
I want to just mention that is probably for the first time in the history of the podcast when we report something like that. For the past year after year, quarter after quarter, we are just reporting up, 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 up. I don't recall any time that we mentioned that sales or the market goes down.
That is true. We're always reporting up years. They said last year was a down year.
Kickstarter
overall.
up, Hasbro up, Asmodee up. Every time we just report how companies say Stoudemire up, Steve Jackson games up. Everybody's talking about up, up, up. For the first time, we see the company who says, actually, it's getting harder.
Well, I mean, we've been getting all these reports out of Hasbro as well that they're having issues and they're having financial troubles and this is going down. So this might be an indicator of a larger picture. I'm also really curious what's going to happen with convention season once it comes around the corner. It sounds like we're going to have another up in convention season, but I'd like to see, is this just a recovery after pandemic, or are we actually going to hit record levels with this one?
Yeah, I had predicted that Gen Con was going to have a record year this year. Ignacy disagreed. I think it definitely has a chance that happens, but Interesting to see, though, that we've seen this down cycle for the first time ever. And guess what? I have to apologize for something I have said here in the past.
Just one thing?
Just one thing. No, something I said that was wrong that I didn't know, and all of a sudden it came out at me, and I found out that the Embracer Group, right, the parent company of Asmodee, we have all been thinking that they're a privately held company, the way that PAI Group was a privately held venture capital company that previously owned Asmodee. We thought it was sold to another one. And guess what? Embracer Group is actually a public company. All of their financials are out there on the internet. They trade on the OTC markets, which is the NASDAQ. You always hear about that. In Sweden, so it's the Swedish NASDAQ, and their symbol is THQQF. You can all go look them up now. THQQF. And I must make the statement, of course, also, I am not a financial advisor. And if I was a financial advisor, I'm not your financial advisor, Corey, Ignacy, or any of the listeners. So do not use this as trading advice. Thank you very much.
I'm going to take your financial advice on that.
So that was just really interesting. I found that out this week. They are publicly traded. You can go check them out. And if you want, on your own accord, you may buy stock in Embracer. In the meantime, let's go to strategy and tactics. So we are really running out of questions now, guys. This is funny. You're going to take a look at the dates that these questions were posted. So we're going to have to do something very soon, Ignacy, to bolster this. So we'll figure something out where we'll be able to get some more questions. But in the meantime, let's take these questions. Jeremiah Brahmer, longtime submitter of questions. He's at Jeremiah Brahmer on BGG. He just says, congratulations on 1,000 posts. Okay, well, thank you, Jeremiah. We appreciate that. It's not a question, so it doesn't count, but we'll say it anyway. Alexander Savinkov, he is I know he's an audio editor, at the Pumpkin on BGG. He says, hello, Ignacy, Steven, and now Corey. Ignacy, in one of your videos, you mentioned that you sometimes use Magic the Gathering cards for inspiration. Since there are so many of them, what Magic card do you want to implement but haven't had the opportunity to do so?
I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I don't remember the names or the titles of the cards. The procedure I'm doing is that I have a huge box that has hundreds of cards inside. These are like old common cards that somebody gave me years ago. And it's like this pile of these cards. And then when I design my card game, when I design my games, my expansions, I just take a card, read, and I think how I can switch this ruling from the Magic the Gathering that would work in my game, and if this is interesting, and if it's not. In most cases, no, doesn't work. Next card. No, doesn't work. Next card. Oh, that'll be interesting. And that idea I steal, I put in my card game, and then once again, blows. So most of the cards I'm not using because they don't work in my games, but sometimes I get this inspiration, and this is how I steal ideas from Magic the Gathering. That was my advice for you to design games.
There you go.
I was really hoping you were going to bring up the Chaos Confetti, the card that you tear up and sprinkle over your other cards.
That was a crazy one. Funny thing that you said that that's what you do. In my game design, I have done something very, very, very similar. That's all I can say. It will tell too much if I told you what game it was. Glenn Cotter, who's at Headcrafted, he says it is incredibly difficult to make a successful game. You need to be both design a good game as well as create marketing hooks that compel people to buy the game. Designing and marketing are two very different skill sets. To get a game signed and published, newer designers need to do both. Well, okay, interesting. But he does point out like making sell sheets and sizzle videos, develop a strong pitch. So he's thinking of the marketing that he's got to do to a publisher, I guess, in this case, posting on social media, etc. As a publisher, what would interest you more? A great game without an obvious hook for marketing, or a great hook for a game that doesn't fully deliver yet? In which case is it easier to spot the diamond in the rough? Ignacy, what do you think?
Oh, it's a super simple question. These days, 90 or 95% games released each year are good. We are living in a great era. Designers are either professionals, either very, very close to be professionals. We have a great developers. We have a great testing groups, conventions, etc. Most of the games that are released these days are good. So it's now not the case to find a good game because I get so many great prototypes. It's something that will be exceptional, unique, very, very weird, something that has this marketing hook. So yeah, if you deliver me a good game or great game, I get them every week in my inbox. But I need something that will be super, super mind-blowing in terms of the how I will get fans excited about this game because there's so many releases.
I think that hook is really important. There's so many games out there where you have 5 seconds, you look at the table, and it's got, that's really weird. The one that I remember, there was a game Dive that has a whole stack of clear cards that are underwater cards, and your goal of the game is you look through this stack of clear cards, guessing what's under the water.
Yep.
That's a hook.
Yep.
I just also want to throw out there, Glenn Cotter is a game designer, so he's
Yep.
coming from a good point on this. He's the designer of Fickle.
Very nice guy, too. We met him over at Napa.
Oh, I love Glenn.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's
awesome.
local to me. I don't see him enough, but he's an awesome guy.
Yeah. Adrian H., who's at Crikey the Cat, I think. I went to a convention a few months back, and there was a game of Giga Terraforming Mars, fan-made variant being played. I'd not heard of it, but I was pretty excited to see it. Here's the content if you haven't seen it. He puts a link in there. Seeing all this fan-made content sent me down a rabbit hole of printing out additional cards, 3D printing, painting additional city tiles to add to my Terraforming Mars bid box. Along the way, I came across some fan-made custom boards that are actually being sold by Fricks. He provides a link, and this seems fairly unique to me. As such, I have some questions. As publishers, how do you feel about this fan-made content? Have you seen any fan-made content for any of your published games that has got you really excited or disappointed that you didn't think of it? Have you or would you produce any of it as an official capacity, like the example above? Let me go to Corey first, because Corey, do you play any fan-made content? Because that's interesting, and then we can.
I've got a great story with that.
Okay.
So the board game Dune, the original Avalon Hill crazy epic board game from the 1970s,
Yep.
was out of print for a very long time. And there was a very popular fan-made art set for Dune on Board Game Geek. People could download the files. There were links there to print your own board, to print your own cards. When Gale Force 9 reprinted Dune, they actually used the fan-made art that had been on Board Game Geek for years. So I think that's a great example of this idea of fan-made art turning into real publisher art. And me, as one, I am a big fan of this new art for Dune. I think it's a fantastic look.
Ignacy, have you published any fan-made stuff after, of course, talking to the fans about it?
Yes. The first official expansion for Robinson Crusoe, designed by the fan. Couple of expansions for Neuroshima Hex, designed by fans. Like we browse Board Game Geek, we see what's got a lot of the thumbs. We test it, we look at this, and if it's interesting, we just publish it. Of course, we reach the designer, the fan designer, we sign the contract, we publish it. And on a personal level, I cannot explain how I'm happy seeing that somebody loves the product enough to create something from his imagination. And as a publisher, for me, is ready to develop the product that I can change to the expansion. So on both level, personal and a business, is a blessing to have great content on Board Game Geek.
100%
so, yes,
agree.
We are using that, yeah.
100% agree. You want fans to be doing that. And you know what? If it's not good, the other fans will tell them that it's not good. But when it's good, hey, that's pretty cool. And maybe it becomes a real thing at some point. Let's get over now to play testing. All right. So last week, Corey had a question. And Corey, you asked everybody, you want to read it and talk about it?
Sure. I am looking for it.
Oh, you're supposed to follow in the show notes. That's fine. I will look. I will read it for everybody.
I was following along with this excellently written and not at all eclectic and insane script. And
Steven,
so I can
remember,
read the
Corey
question.
is still new with the podcast. He needs to learn this. Like, forgive him.
I gotta
So,
forgive him. All right, go ahead,
The
Corey.
the brilliant question. Board games take a long time to develop, create, and release. How long before they're in stores should game companies hype a new game? Is there a too early, too soon? Some examples were Phil Walker Harding's Monolith and Starling's My Little Everdell. They just showed up. Nobody knew they were coming. They just dropped when they were finished. No lead-in time. Then there's some Kickstarter campaigns, CMON Kickstarters that are talked about 6 months, a year before the crowdfunding campaign even launches. So where is that magic zone? Where's that Goldilocks zone?
It's a very good question, and then I noticed you called out Terraforming Mars Legacy, which was not hyped. I got cornered, and it mentioned, and it's still not out. So many years later.
I would never mention such a
You
thing.
killed this project with your leak.
The project is dead because of this crazy leak that I got in trouble. The Fricks guys did not appreciate me mentioning it. Anyway, so who wants to take? Well, let's pick a couple of these interesting comments each. Ignacy, anything that struck you when you looked through the comments that we got?
Yes. John mentioned Stonemaier games. Let me read it, because Stonemaier indeed has a very unique model in the industry. And John says, I appreciate the way Stonemaier has done it over the past 5 to 6 years. Very little hype ahead of time. Then pre-orders, hype begins just weeks or even days before they are ready to begin shipping. But I realize that carries a bit more risk for the publisher if no expected hype falls short and they are left with too much inventory and losing money. And if I can comment, this is indeed extremely difficult, and only a couple of publishers in the world listing Stonemaier games can pull it off. Like, you have to have super loyal fans that are looking forward for everything that you are going to release. You have to have a huge mailing list that you have these thousands of people, and some of them will be interested. Like, not many publishers can pull it off. But of course, we all look at what Stonemaier Games is doing, and we all say, oh, this is cool. He announces the game, he sells the game. How easy it is. It is years in preparation to build such a loyal fans and such a big email address list.
Indeed. Corey, anything you want to point out here?
Looking through the answers, I just found it interesting that there seemed to be people who wanted zero hype at all, and a bunch of people who wanted to hear about it way ahead of time. So it did seem to be split all over the place. So I think Rick Fuss summed it up pretty good. It depends. If a publisher picks up the rights to republish, relocalize for a small print run, or I want to know right away, even if they won't end up releasing it for 9 to 12 months, it saves me from trying to track down a copy and then get translations and or pay stubs. For a game launching on crowdfunding, a month or two before is enough. So I found it interesting there was no real consensus that we want to know way ahead of time, or hype is nothing, we don't want to know at all.
Yeah, I mean, there's an entire spectrum here on like days essentially to could be years. But Rick's answer was great. When you sign something that's already out, you need to get that information out to people so they don't start paying, huge shipping costs to get it from Japan or something like that. So that was a good answer. I'm going to take one thing here, and that was Mike Walecki says exactly 9 months, no more, no less. I have a feeling he was half joking on that answer, but it's pretty funny. He says he wants a 9-month lead time on hype, nothing more, nothing less. So everybody, what do you think? What do you think about this? Right now, as I speak, Ignacy is going to create a thread on Board Game Geek for you to answer our question. By the way, Ignacy, I had to do it last week because, Corey's new. He doesn't know how to do these things.
The hell? What's the question?
What's the question? Oh, we didn't put it. Oh my God, we didn't do Michael.
Corey, forgive me. Corey, forgive him. He's a new in the podcast. Like, I'm the only one who knows what the hell is going on here.
You know what? I'm so confused by having you two jamokes on this show here at the same time.
It's
Very
probably the
typical.
brilliantly written and clearly edited script.
This script is amazing. Just because
It
you,
is.
I listen. I've
I
been
think
on
we
your.
need more colors in the script.
I've been on your podcast, sir, and your script is like to the letter. You have to follow that script. Anyway,
but easy to follow.
so I'm sorry, everybody out there. My apologies for that faux pas there. My question this week to all of you out there, I said, what is your most played big game of all time? Now, in this context, and we can change it if we don't believe this is a good answer. A big game for this purpose will be a game that takes over 3 hours for you to complete when played. Do you think that's a fair way of saying a big game? Do you think it should be longer than that? I think over 3 hours is a big game.
I usually think of 3 hours as that limit of,
Yeah.
this is a large, heavy
Right.
game.
So I'm going to say, what is your most played big game of all time? And we're going to define that as over 3 hours. So who wants to go first? Corey?
It's a tough one. My most played game of all time is probably Gloomhaven. I've played nearly every scenario there, and some of those scenarios took us over 3 hours. And I know that's a little slow for those Gloomhaven aficionados out there, so I might be stretching the boundaries of a big game.
Yeah.
If you take Gloomhaven as a whole, I think the whole game does take over 3 hours. I haven't added all those numbers together yet.
Yes, but each scenario, which is a game, does not take usually 3 hours. And if it does, you're an APer, so I'm not playing.
I track my games, so I use Board Game Stats, which, by the way, is the best tracking program ever.
Very cool.
And I have, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of games of Gloomhaven tracked.
That's very cool. And we should probably play, because I don't have hundreds of games. I have played quite a few, but not nearly that many. Ignacy, what's your most played big game of all time?
As I look into my amazing app, Board Game Stats, I see, obviously, as we can all expect, the most played games are the short ones.
Sure.
But if I'm looking for the long game, number 14, so very, very high, still very, very high, A Game of Thrones, the card game, the famous Eric Lang game from FFG. First it was CCG, then it was a living card game. If you play multiplayer, it's like 3-4 hours of just struggling and arguments and attacking each other and diplomacy and negotiation. So it is like, for me, it's like an afternoon game. We know it will be betraying and attacking each other and arguing.
Yeah.
Brilliant game. I love you, Eric. So yeah, Game of Thrones, the card game.
Yeah, Game of Thrones, the board game, is to me an underrated game. Again, it's all about just backstabbing. Oh, I'm not going to attack you, don't worry. And then and then the North comes down and just destroys everything. So I love it. Mine is obvious. It's War of the Ring.
No way. Seriously?
No, really?
I was going to guess Super Mega Lucky Box, but
Super Mega Lucky Box
threw me.
Well, I'm asking them, but I'm just giving it. So, you know what? Screw you guys. I had enough of this. So Ignacy was now going to create that thread that I said he was going to create, because Corey doesn't know how to do it. So please go to our guild, find our playtesting thread with this question, and post your answers so that we have better answers than ours. In the meantime, let's get over to the final score. Thank you all so much for listening to the nonsense of these two guys. Help us spread the word about this podcast by telling your friends to download Board Games Insider wherever they like to get their podcasts. Or you can watch Board Games Insider on the Podfather Gaming YouTube channel. Want to be part of this podcast? You can ask us questions for the strategy and tactics segment by posting them in the correct thread in our guild on Board Game Geek. And also answer our question to you from the playtesting segment, also by going to the guild on Board Game Geek and looking for the thread with this episode's question. Check out our websites, which are portalgamesus.com, podfathergaming.com, and dicetowerdish.com and dicetowernow.com. We're all over social media, so interact with us, please. On Facebook, please like our games, our pages, that is, which are /BoardGamesInsider, /PortalGamesUS, and /Podfather Gaming. You can speak directly to Ignacy and Steven on Twitter and Instagram, which is @PortalGamesUS and @Podfather Gaming, @Dice Tower Dish, @Dice Tower Now, and the very active YouTube channels are Portal Games Movies, Portal Games Gameplays, and the Podfather of Gaming. TikTok, Ignacy dances @Portal Games US. We would really love to see you in person at an upcoming convention in 2023. Hopefully, we'll see you at Dice Tower West. Look for Corey and me there. So please reach out to us. We live for it to talk to you guys when we're in person. Board Games Insider is professionally edited by Joshua Bowman from Tabletop Submarine. If you want your podcast edited by Joshua, you can reach out to him at tabletopsubmarine@gmail.com. And that great voice you hear doing our intro, outro, and in between segments is that of Ray Greenlee. He can be contacted to do voiceover work at raygreenleevoiceover.com. Ignacy, I see that you're typing in the special news. So is there something that you would like to tell people, which is, I think we're overhyping this thing that you just typed there, but go ahead, Ignacy.
This is a very important question. It says, are you prepared for voting for us in a Golden Geek contest? Please be ready. Double check you know the address. It's https, then I don't know the English word. Then
://
BOARDGAMEGEEK.com/.
Everybody out there, he actually wrote that out with spaces between each one of the letters. He had to spell this for you. We're going to have a backlash. They're going to be angry at us if we overhype this.
True.
Let's make sure we focus our marketing campaign when the time is ready. And by the way, I don't even know when they start. When do they start?
That's why they need to be ready, because we don't know when it starts. So when it starts, you guys need to be already ready.
All right, we will put it all over social media. You're ready to stuff the ballot box?
I am going to stuff the ballot box.
Are you going to be voting for Dice Tower or for us?
I will vote.
There you go, everybody. Thanks, everybody, for listening or watching. We appreciate it. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
See you around.